I'm sorry, I don't remember the gentleman's name, next to Steve Shepard, but on the hand, so I'll send these out to him, since he mentioned that he was handling the public interest part of this program. Well, these questions are in the public interest, I can assure you. What's the designated purpose of an aquifer recharge zone as designated by the state of Texas?
Well, I appreciate you directing that question to me, but I think I'm going to have to pass that question to the technical staff.
Okay.
A recharge zone is an area where water falls on the ground, either precipitation, snow, surface drainage, that infiltrates the surface and eventually makes its way into an aquifer.
Are there any criteria, special criteria for a recharge zone, or can they be just anywhere?
Well, there are recharge zones for different aquifers across the state.
Yes, but let's talk about this aquifer.
Okay.
What would you think would be some of the criteria involved? Maybe soil type,
Possibly,
possibly?
yeah. And there are maps that show the recharge areas.
Okay. You think maybe the areas ought to be clean, or as clean as it can possibly be in a given area? You think that's reasonable?
Well, you're asking me to speculate a little bit here.
I am asking you to speculate. This whole thing seems pretty speculative right now. But you're welcome to pass if you don't want to speculate. I've got a few other questions.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
How many sanitary landfills, dumps, permits for these has your agency or any of the predecessors that you know of historically? There have been 3 or 4 designations over the years, Water Quality Board going way back, et cetera. But how many permits? This is sort of a follow-up to what the lady had, but not just in the last 10 years. How many permits have ever been granted for a sanitary landfill over a designated aquifer recharge zone in this state?
I don't have the number. That would be something we would have to research.
Well, what if it was 0? You think this, are we trying to make history here, or what have we done?
Well, I'm not going to, I don't want to give any misinformation, so.
Yeah, we don't want to speculate, right? Okay. Is there any way to be certain, in all honesty, what goes in to a dump, sanitary landfill? I mean, you take trash to a sanitary landfill in bags and boxes. There's nobody out there picking through them to see just exactly what's going in there. So how in the heck do we really know? Any of us, how do we know?
You're correct. Household waste is exempted from RECRA regulations, and so any of that waste can be disposed with household waste legally.
And we hope like heck it's just household waste, because we really can't tell, can we? I don't recall anybody going through my trailer or my pickup truck, examining each box. So my point is, we don't have tight regulation because it's not practical. We're talking about possibly permitting a sanitary landfill, whatever we want to call it, over an aquifer recharge zone that is just likely to be the only time it's done in the state of Texas. I think we need to give a little consideration what we're doing here. Thank you.
Anybody else has a question, step up to the microphone.
I want to clarify something that was said earlier. A comment was made there had been 3 no's that is not, well, maybe correct, because we haven't named the last one a node. Notice there actually have been 3 letters with approximately 180 issues that were titled nodes. Node 1, Node 2, Node 3. When Stop Post Oak Dump started questioning how many nodes there were going to be, TCEQ decided to start naming them requests for information. Then there were 4 of those. To me, that's a total of 7 notices of deficiencies that does not include the new one. And y'all failed to say how many issues there were on this new one. There are 110 issues on the one that was just submitted. So to set the record straight, in my thought process, that is a total of 7 plus 1 that hasn't been addressed yet. That's 8. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Watts, that's great.
Sorry, the gentleman on the left, whichever of y'all can do this. I've understood that there's a liner, a big, huge liner of some sort that's going to be underneath all this, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
How many times has this particular liner been used? What are the statistics on holes, leaks, the perfection of these liners? And how long have they been in use?
The liner that's designed for this landfill has become mandatory and common since 1993, and it was done prior to that. And it's one part of a number of systems in the landfill that are aimed at making it environmentally protective of groundwater contamination.
Are you familiar with ever any failures on the parts of these liners in the past? Or would you want to tell us that?
Well, most of the failures you hear of are from early landfills that had no liners or insufficient liners.
I'm talking about this particular kind of liner.
Yeah, and I don't know of any failures on this kind of liner.
Okay, so if this liner's been in use for approximately 20 years, 21 years, somewhere at least around this country, it doesn't seem to me like that's, in the scheme of things, the longest time to test its durability, especially in a state like Texas, with the heat that we get, and the rains that we get, and the water issues that we have. We don't get a lot of rain a lot of times, God knows, things dry out, but when we get rain, it sure does come. And I'm just curious as to what your projections are and how confident y'all can be, being that this is a man-made thing, and it seems to be man-made things have failed often. What are you going to do if it does fail? What's your plan?
Well, the way the whole thing works, over the life of the landfill, is we start out designing and constructing a twin liner, which is made out of packed clay and plastic. And as it is constructed, it is inspected continually and tested by an independent engineer.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt just real quick because I'm not sure about the rest of y'all, but if it's got stuff on top of it and it gets thicker and thicker on top of it, how is it that you test it?
No, you test it as it's being constructed for any holes, any leaks, any seam problems in the plastic. You test the soil, the packed clay, which is an area of the water. You test it to make sure that it's the contractor has done a good job and it's tight. And you actually take samples from it to do that.
Do you then turn that over to the state of Texas? Is that something that
Yes,
you all
yes.
inspect
We issue
privately?
a
Or?
report to the state, they review it and make sure it's complete.
And how frequently?
Every time you build a line, you do that now, and you'll build just one portion, maybe 1/20th of the landfill, and it gets covered up with waste pretty quickly. Now, just above this liner is a liquid collection and removal system. So right on top of the liner, it's designed these days, and this is a new feature since the 90s, where liquids that may have percolated through the garbage are collected, and they're required to be rainfall that falls in there, you pull that water out so you don't have a lot of water in the landfill to start with. So that, as it, during its life, as you're operating, you fling the water out. Now, when everything is full in the landfill, then you have a final cover system. And again, it's a twin layer of soil and plastic, and then some soil and vegetation. And that system keeps water from entering into the landfill once it's closed. And then during the operations, there's groundwater monitoring going on. This landfill will be surrounded by monitor wells spaced 600 feet apart, 300 feet apart, 300 to 600 feet apart. And every year, at least every year, probably twice a year, those will be monitored. And once everything's buttoned up and finished and the landfill is closed, there will be inspections several times a year to make sure everything is going well, the monitor wells will be checked. This will go on at least 30 years after everything goes on. So the whole idea is to have barrier layers, to remove all the liquids, and then prevent liquids from getting in there in the future. And so these are all the elements that are in a modern landfill to make it effective of groundwater.
What are you all predicting the lifespan of this landfill to be at this point?
About 120 years.
Right, so if there's a leak, say 80 years from now, and I don't know how many, or grandchild down, because I live about 2 miles as the crow flies from that place, the water is affected. I suppose we just need an Aaron Brockovich to come in and...
Well, what if there
Twit, I'm serious.
Yeah, if there would be a
It's my
problem,
backyard.
first of all, these groundwater monitor wells would detect a change in the chemistry of the groundwater.
Okay, so let me just stop you right there.
Okay.
So you detect something in one of those little monitor wells. That means something's broken through your system and gotten out of our water. What do you do then?
Well,
Pay a fine?
well, what you do is you act, and the thing is, and a key thing you do is you pull out all the liquids from that landfill and you keep all of it. And then you cover it up, and you may have to cover it up prematurely so no more liquid can get in. And once you do that, then there's very little liquids that can leak through and go through. There's also some other techniques you can use to cut off pressure to confine a leak like that. And this is what's done. Generally on these modern landfills, you don't encounter that sort of thing, but in the older landfills, there's a lot of experience cleaning up some of the landfills that do not have liners.
But you're pretty confident that this generation's got it right. You think this time we're not messing it up? We're 10 to 30 years from now.
I'm confident in the system. I've been doing these landfills since 1980, and looking at the performance. So,
Can you tell me if this does fail for whatever great, awesome reason you all don't pass, and I'm voting against you big time? Do you have Plan B? Y'all looking at other places? Maybe farther away from humans?
They're the engineering firm hired by the applicant.
Right.
So if they're looking at other, that would
Well, I
be,
just figured if the applicant, though, is working this process, maybe applicants got them on another project at the same time, just in case this one doesn't.
do you have that information, Wayne?
Can you share that or not? I mean, I'm just hopeful.
No, we are not.
No, so we're in it.
This is it.
I hope y'all don't get your way.